In the vast expanse of Roman history, where emperors rose like blazing comets and vanished just as quickly, few figures remain as enigmatic as the man whose name was deliberately erased from the records. He was neither a senator nor a general, not a prince nor a barbarian king. He was a shadow-on assassin whose single act, hidden beneath layers of political theater, altered the fate of Imperial Rome. And yet, most people today have never heard of him. But in the corridors of ancient power, whispered in fear, he was known simply as the man who struck before dawn. For centuries, the empire had survived conspiracies, cob attempts, and palace intrigues, but this story was different. This was not a tale of greed or ambition alone. It was a reckoning behind the glittering facade of Roman glory. There simmered a conflict between loyalty and betrayal, between an emperor's fragile authority and the silent men paid to protect it. Few knew that among those hand-picked protectors stood someone who had already chosen a side, someone who believed Rome needed cleansing through blood. What seemed like just another shift in the endless cycle of power would, in truth, push the empire closer to the edge. And when the blade finally fell, the consequences would ripple for generations. Before we dive into this gripping journey through Rome's darkest alleys and most secret councils, take a moment to subscribe and leave your like. Your support helps this channel bring more stories like this, one stories buried under centuries of dust but burning with the power to reshape how we see the ancient world. At the height of the Roman Empire, the world looked upon Rome as an unshakable colossus. Its legions marched across continents, its aqueducts carried water across impossible distances, its emperors were treated as living gods. Yet beneath all that magnificence lay a truth few dared to speak aloud. The empire was held together not only by stone and steel, but by fear. Political factions clawed for power, generals built private loyalties among their troops, and each emperor knew that his greatest threat was not from distant barbarians, but from the men who sat closest to him. This was the age of the Praetorian Guard, elite soldiers sworn to protect the emperor, yet infamous for deciding who deserved the throne. Behind their polished armor and disciplined ranks seethed a world of secret alliances. Some guarded the emperor with unwavering loyalty, others guarded their ambition, and Rome, unknowingly, was preparing the stage for the perfect storm of betrayal. Among these men stood the forgotten assassin. His name, believed to be Quintus Varianus by a handful of historians, rarely appears in surviving chronicles, but fragments suggest he was born far from the splendor of Rome, in a small settlement along the Danube frontier. He grew up watching veterans return, home-scarred, hollow, yet revered. Power, he learned early, belonged to those who seized it. As a teenager, he was recruited into the legions, not because of noble birth, but because he carried something more valuable: absolute silence. He listened more than he spoke, obeyed more than he questioned, and soon caught the eye of a Praetorian officer who insisted he be transferred to Rome. In the capital, his life transformed overnight. He traded muddy boots for polished greaves, frontier barracks for marble halls. Yet he never forgot where he came from. Walking through the palace colonnades, hearing senators whisper about fortunes won through corruption, watching emperors make decrees that sent sons to die in wars they barely understood, he felt a quiet rage forming. Rome was rotting, he thought, and no one with power was willing to stop it. Ambition, arrogance, greed, these were the true emperors now. As tensions grew, the emperor, at the time historically identified as Caracalla, alienated the Senate, angered the military, and divided the empire with ruthless decisions. Yet he believed his greatest threats were foreign. What he did not realize was that his downfall would come from a man who marched beside him, matching his pace, step for step. Whispers spread among the guard. A faction of officers believed Rome needed a different ruler, someone stronger, more disciplined, less volatile. These men began meeting in secret chambers lit only by oil lamps, discussing strategy, risk, and the price of failure. Varianus sat silently in those meetings, absorbing every detail. When the moment came, he volunteered. Some said he did it for Rome. Others said he did it for revenge. What he truly felt that night may never be known. The day of the assassination unfolded under a scorching sun. The emperor, confident in his authority, traveled with a small escort to visit a temple outside the city. Dust rose beneath the hooves of his horse. Birds scattered from the roadside trees. He dismissed half his guard, believing no danger could reach him so far from political intrigues. Varianus remained at his side, one hand resting on the hilt of his blade, eyes fixed ahead. When the emperor stepped aside to relieve himself a detail preserved by ancient chroniclers, the assassin approached slowly. Heart-pounding breath steady. This was the moment, a step closer, a whisper of steel being drawn. And before the emperor could turn, the blade sank deep into his chest. The world seemed to freeze. For a heartbeat, there was no Rome, no empire, no fate, only the dying gasp of a ruler who had never imagined betrayal could come so quietly. Seconds later, chaos erupted. Soldiers shouted, horses reared. Varianus attempted to flee, but he did not get far. A loyalist struck him down, and his body fell to the dirt, forgotten as quickly as it appeared. But the deed was done. Caracalla was dead, and the empire plunged into crisis. In the days that followed, power shifted like sand in a storm. New alliances formed overnight. Territories revolted. Generals mobilized their armies. What was meant to save Rome instead accelerated its decline. Some chroniclers wrote that the assassin had been a hero. Others condemned him as a traitor. But all agreed on one thing. After that day, nothing was ever the same. Today, historians still debate whether Varianus acted out of ideology, manipulation, or personal vengeance. But his single decision made in silence, carried out in seconds, changed the trajectory of one of history's greatest empires. His legacy is not carved in marble, nor celebrated in triumphal arches. It exists in the shadows, in the fragile moments where empires tremble, and in the reminder that sometimes the most powerful forces in history are the ones erased from it. If you enjoyed traveling through this forgotten chapter of Rome, subscribe to the channel, leave your like, and share your thoughts in the comments. Tell us which empire, ruler, or hidden figure you want to uncover next. The ancient world still holds many secrets, and together we can bring them back to life.